The distress signal ambassador Sorel stood before the Grand Council of the Lumari Confederation, her silver-scaled skin reflecting the soft azure light of the chamber. 12 counselors from different worlds watched her with expressions of growing dread. Outside the crystal dome of the council hall, the twin suns of Lumaria Prime cast rainbow patterns across the city's spiraling towers. "Play it again," Sorel requested, her voice barely audible. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the final transmission from the colony world of Haven. Static interrupted desperate words. "They're breaching our shields. Ships like nothing we've seen. They consume everything. Please send help." The message ended with screams before cutting to silence. "That is the final communication from Haven," Sorel said. "Population of 2 million souls. Now, silent." Counselor Varen, his facial fins fluttering with anxiety, leaned forward. "What of our defense forces?" Sorel touched a control panel, bringing up images of sleek silver ships. "Our entire fleet consists of 40 explorer vessels and 15 peacekeeping ships, none designed for full-scale warfare." "And these attackers?" asked Counselor Tessa, her forearms wrapped tightly around herself. The display changed to show grainy images of dark, organic-looking vessels moving in perfect coordination. They resembled a swarm of insects, with larger queen ships surrounded by countless smaller craft. "We call them the Void Horde," Sorel explained. "Scan data suggests they're a collective intelligence. Based on their trajectory, they will reach Lumaria Prime in 30 solar cycles." Silence fell over the chamber. The Lumari Confederation spanned 27 worlds across 7 star systems, home to billions of peaceful beings. None had faced true danger in over a millennium. "We must evacuate immediately," suggested Counselor Varen. "To where?" Sorel asked quietly. "If these invaders cannot be stopped, nowhere in our space will remain safe." Counselor Tessa stood, her ceremonial robes shimmering. "What about our allies? The Solarian Network or the Velt Consortium?" "I have contacted them," Sorel replied. "The Solarians have even less military capability than we do. The Velk have promised aid, but they are months away at their fastest speed." Counselor Rahl, the eldest member of the council, spoke for the first time. "Then we face extinction." Sorel took a deep breath. What she would say next might alter the fate of their civilization forever. "There is one other option." She pressed another button. The screen changed to show a blue-green planet wrapped in swirling white clouds. "Earth," she said simply. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. "The quarantined world," gasped Varen. "You cannot be serious." "The humans are isolated for good reason," said Counselor Tessa, her eyes wide with fear. "They evolved on a death world. High gravity, extreme temperatures, predators, natural disasters. Their entire history is written in blood and violence." Sorel held up her hand for silence. "Yes, the humans are dangerous. Their bodies are built for survival in harsh conditions. Their minds shaped by constant struggle. But our long-range observations have confirmed they've developed their own space, travel despite our quarantine. All the more reason to keep them away," Rahl said. "If we invite such creatures here, who's to say they won't be worse than the Void Horde?" Sorel approached the council table, looking at each member in turn. "I have studied Earth transmissions for years. Yes, they have a history of warfare that would sicken any of us. But they also possess something we lack: the ability to fight and win against overwhelming odds." She returned to the screen, enlarging the image of Earth. "When we discovered them 8 centuries ago, they were primitive, just beginning to explore their own planet. We chose to quarantine rather than invite them into our community." "We feared their potential for violence," interrupted Tessa. "With good reason. But in doing so," Sorel continued, "we may have lost potential protectors. Everything I've observed suggests that humans have a strong drive to defend others. They call it their protective instinct. They tell stories about the strong defending the weak. Pretty ideas to mask their savage nature," scoffed Varen. "Perhaps," Sorel admitted, "but right now we need savages. We need creatures evolved to fight and survive. We need Deathworlders. After hours of debate, the vote was close, 7-5 in favor of contacting Earth. As the emergency signal was prepared, Counselor Tessa approached Sorel privately. "Do you understand what you've done?" she asked, her voice low. "If the humans come and if they help us defeat the Void Horde, they will want something in return, a place in our confederation, access to our worlds." Sorel nodded slowly. "Yes. And if they turn against us afterward when there is no common enemy." Sorel looked back at the screen where technicians were encoding the message for transmission. "Then we've traded certain destruction for possible destruction. That's the best choice. We have." The emergency beacon activated with a soft chime, sending their desperate plea across the stars. "To Earth Command from the Lumari Confederation Council. Emergency Protocol Alpha. We face extinction from unknown invaders. Requesting immediate military assistance. We have no other hope." No one knew if humans still monitored the ancient emergency frequency, established during first contact before the quarantine. No one knew if they would respond after centuries of isolation. No one knew if they would come as saviors or conquerors. But they had to try. The alternative was too terrible to contemplate. Captain Maya Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Dauntless, watching Earth grow smaller through the view screen. At 38, she was one of the youngest captains in the United Earth Defense Force, her rapid promotion the result of both tactical brilliance and the kind of decisive leadership rarely found in training simulations. "Still can't believe it," said Commander Jackson, her executive officer. After 800 years of silence, the Lumari finally called. Chen's dark eyes remained fixed on the receding view of Earth. Took the threat of extinction to make them reconsider their no violent species allowed policy. "And we're responding," Jackson observed. "After they locked us out of galactic society, because our world was too harsh and we were too potentially violent." Chen turned to face him. "We're responding because that's what humans do. We protect." The UES Dauntless led a fleet of 30 warships, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Advanced warships bristling with weapon systems that the Lumari, with their focus on artistic and scientific pursuits, could scarcely comprehend. Admiral William Torres, overall commander of the expedition, appeared on the main screen. "All ships. Report ready, Captain Chen. Prepare for FTL jump in 5 minutes." Chen nodded. "Yes, Admiral. Dauntless is ready." As the communication ended, Chen addressed her bridge crew. "I know what many of you are thinking. Why should we help those who rejected us? Who feared us? Who called us monsters?" She paused, looking at each face in turn. "Because that's what makes us human. We protect. We defend. Not because it's easy or because there's something in it for us, but because it's right." She walked to the viewport. Humanity spent thousands of years fighting itself. We nearly destroyed our own world multiple times. But we learned. We grew. We united. And now we have a chance to show the galaxy that the very traits they feared in us, our strength, our tenacity, our willingness to fight, are exactly what make us valuable allies. "And if these Lumari still fear us after we save them?" asked Lieutenant Reyes, voicing the question many were thinking. Chen smiled slightly. "Then we'll have proven them right about our capacity for violence and wrong about how we choose to use it." As the massive human fleet prepared for faster-than-light travel, activity bustled throughout the ships. In armories, troops checked weapons and battlesuits. In medical bays, doctors prepared for casualties. In engineering sections, technicians fine-tuned engines and weapon systems. "FTL jump in 30 seconds, announced the navigation officer. Chen returned to her command chair. "Take us to the Lumari system, maximum speed. Let's show the galaxy what Deathworlders can do when they're defending life instead of taking it." One by one, the human ships vanished into the fabric of space, leaving Earth behind. Their destination, a confederation of peaceful worlds facing extinction. Their purpose, to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their capacity for violence, but their willingness to use that capacity to protect others. The Deathworlders were coming. and the galaxy would never be the same. Clash of fire and void. The Lumari observation station hung in space like a glass sculpture, its elegant curves and transparent sections reflecting starlight. Ambassador Sorel stood at the large observation window, her hearts beating rapidly. 5 days had passed since they sent their desperate message to Earth. "Any sign of them?" asked Counselor Tessa, joining her at the window. "Nothing yet," Sorel replied. "But they said 5 days. It's only been—" A sudden alarm interrupted her. A junior officer rushed to the sensor station. "Multiple space-time ruptures detected," the officer called out, voice shaking. "Massive energy signatures." Sorel and Tessa watched in stunned silence as the fabric of space tore open before their station. First one ship emerged, then another, then dozens more. The sight made Sorel's breath catch in her throat. The human vessels were nothing like the elegant Lumari ships. These were angular, powerful machines built for war. Their hulls were marked with symbols and numbers, bristling with weapon systems unlike anything in Lumari design philosophy. The flagship at the center dwarfed their entire defense fleet. "By the twin suns," whispered Tessa. "What have we invited?" "Here?" The communications console chimed. "Incoming transmission from the human flagship," announced the communications officer. "Put it through," ordered Sorel, straightening her posture. The screen lit up to show a human female with short black hair and intense dark eyes. She wore a dark uniform decorated with symbols of rank. "This is Captain Maya Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said. "We received your distress call. The Dauntless and her battle groups are at your service." Sorel stepped forward. "Captain Chen, I am Ambassador Sorel of the Lumari Confederation. On behalf of our 27 worlds, I thank you for answering our call." Chen nodded. "We've brought a response fleet. Our flagship will dock with your station for strategic planning. We request an immediate meeting with your leadership." "Of course," Sorel agreed. "We will prepare for your arrival." As the transmission ended, Tessa grabbed Sorel's arm. "Did you see the size of that fleet? They must have sent a significant portion of their military forces." "Which means they take the threat seriously," Sorel replied. "That's good news. Or they're using this opportunity to position themselves for something else," Tessa warned. Sorel had no answer to that. 2 hours later, Captain Chen and her command staff entered the Lumari Council chamber. The difference between the species was immediately apparent. The humans moved with efficient precision, their bodies dense with muscle, their eyes constantly scanning the room. Even in the station's lighter gravity, they seemed solid, substantial. The Lumari, with their tall, slender frames and glass-like skin, looked fragile by comparison. Chen approached Sorel and extended her hand. "Ambassador Sorel, I presume?" Sorel hesitated before carefully taking the human's hand, copying the greeting gesture she had seen in Earth transmissions. The human's grip was firm but controlled, as if Chen was carefully holding back her strength. "Welcome to Lumari Space, Captain," Sorel said, trying to hide her nervousness. "May I introduce Senior Counselor Tessa and the members of our Defense Council?" Chen nodded to each in turn, then introduced her own staff. Commander Jackson, Lieutenant Reyes, and several specialists in various fields. With formal greetings completed, they moved to the large meeting table. Chen studied the delicate Lumari with interest. Now that she was seeing them in person, she understood why they had been so afraid of humans. To them, humans must seem like creatures made of stone. Heavy, dense, and built for violence. "Your message indicated an invasion force attacking your outer colonies," Chen said, getting straight to business. "We've deployed scout ships to assess the threat while our main fleet stands ready." Sorel gestured to a holographic display showing the Lumari Confederation and the path of destruction left by the invaders. "They have already destroyed 1 colony world, 2 million lives lost. Their fleet is moving toward our next settlement. At their current speed, they will reach it tomorrow." Counselor Tessa studied the humans across the table. "After centuries of quarantine, why would you help us? We did not treat your species kindly." Chen's smile didn't reach her eyes. Because that's what humans do. We protect those who can't protect themselves. The awkward reunion was interrupted when Commander Jackson received a message on his device. "Captain, the scout ships have reported back," he said urgently. "Put it on the main display," Chen ordered. The holographic display changed to show footage captured by the scout ships. The images were clear and horrifying. Strange ships of dark, organic material moved with perfect coordination, surrounding a Lumari colony. Beams of energy cut through defenses like they were made of paper. Smaller craft descended to the surface, gathering resources and, most disturbing of all, collecting living beings. "They're systematic," observed Jackson. "No emotion, no hesitation, just cold calculation." "What are they?" asked one of the Lumari counselors, voice shaking. Lieutenant Reyes studied the data. "Based on our analysis, they appear to be a collective intelligent species. We're designating them the Void Horde. Their ships show evidence of both technological and biological components working as a single system." "Like a hive," suggested Jackson. Chen turned to the Lumari Council. "We'll need to coordinate. Your knowledge of local space combined with our combat capabilities gives us the best chance of stopping them." Surreal hesitated. "Our people have no experience with warfare. We evolved without major predators. Our species never developed the instincts or technologies for large-scale combat." "Then learn," Chen replied firmly. "Or prepare for extinction. The Void Horde won't care about your peaceful intentions." Tessa looked offended, but Sorel nodded slowly. "What do you need from us?" Chen's expression softened slightly. "First, complete access to your star charts and sensor networks. Second, a staging area for our troops and ships. Third, volunteers from your people to act as guides and advisors." "And after?" Tessa asked. "If we defeat this Void Horde, what then?" "Then we talk about the future," Chen said. "About a new relationship between Earth and the Lumari Confederation. But first, we fight." As the human officers began laying out battle plans, the Lumari witnessed the full extent of humanity's capacity for strategic violence. The humans discussed attack formations, weapon yields, and acceptable casualties with a calm efficiency that was both impressive and terrifying. Surreal watched as Chen directed her staff, pointing out weaknesses in the enemy formation, suggesting countermeasures, calculating risks. In that moment she understood why her ancestors had feared these Deathworlders, but she also understood something else. These humans had come not to conquer, but to protect. "We'll deploy the main fleet here," Chen was saying, pointing to a position near the next colony in the Void Horde's path. "The Lumari ships will serve as early warning and evacuation support." "You want us to run while you fight?" asked a Lumari counselor. "I want you to do what you're good at," Chen replied. "Save lives. Leave the killing to us." Sorel met Chen's gaze across the table. Human and Lumari, Deathworlder and Garden Worlder, predator and prey, united by a common threat. "We will do our part," Sorel promised, "and perhaps learn from you in the process." Chen nodded. "Once the battle begins tomorrow, the Deathworlders will stand between your people and extinction. Let's make sure we all live to tell about it." The combined human-Lumari fleet formed a protective line before the colony world of Lumaria Secundus. The sleek, elegant Lumari vessels looked like toys next to the massive human warships. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, studying the tactical display with intense focus. "Void Horde approaching," announced Lieutenant Reyes. "Estimated arrival in 20 minutes. Chen nodded, her face calm despite the tension filling the bridge. Several Lumari observers stood at the back of the command center, their eyes wide as they watched the controlled chaos of human battle preparations. "All ships report ready, Captain," said Commander Jackson. "Good," Chen replied. "Remind all captains, hold formation and wait for my command. No heroics." The minutes ticked by slowly. On the main view screen, the stars shone bright and peaceful, against the black of space. It was hard to believe that death approached. "Void Horde dropping out of FTL," reported the sensor officer. "Multiple signatures, count as 187 vessels." The view screen shifted to show the enemy fleet, Black ships moved in perfect formation like a swarm of insects, with mechanical precision, no ship out of place by even a meter. "They're scanning us," said Lieutenant Reyes, watching her instruments. "They've already adapted to our scanning frequencies. They're learning our patterns." Chen nodded grimly. "That's what they do. But adaptation goes both ways." She turned to address the bridge crew. "This is what we trained for. The Void Horde relies on patterns and calculations. We rely on courage and determination. Remember your training, but trust your instincts." Chen pressed a button on her command chair. "All ships, this is Captain Chen. Engage as planned. Group 1 forward. Groups 2 and 3 hold position. Godspeed." The first wave of human ships moved toward the Void Horde. Heavy cruisers and destroyers fired their main weapons in a coordinated barrage. Brilliant energy beams cut across space, striking the front line of Void vessels. For a moment it seemed the attack had worked. Several Void ships exploded in silent bursts of light. But then the remaining enemy vessels adjusted their shields, and the next volley of human weapons did far less damage. "They're adapting to our weapon frequencies," reported Reyes with alarm. "As expected," Chen said calmly. "Signal Group 2, begin attack pattern Beta." The second wave of human ships moved forward, launching swarms of smaller fighter craft. The Tao. Tiny ships darted between the larger Void vessels, targeting weak points with precise strikes. The Void Horde responded with devastating efficiency. Energy beams lashed out, catching several human destroyers. One exploded in a ball of fire, another drifted, crippled. Ambassador Sorel watched from her position near the back of the bridge, her face pale. "Your people are dying for our worlds," she said to Commander Jackson, who stood beside her. "That's what soldiers do," Jackson responded without looking away from the tactical displays. "We understood the cost when we volunteered." The battle continued to unfold. The Void Horde adapted quickly to each human tactic, adjusting their shields and weapons. Several more human ships were hit. Damage reports filled the communications channels. "This isn't working," Chen muttered, watching the tactical display as the Void Horde continued their methodical advance. "They're calculating every move, countering, with perfect efficiency." She stood suddenly, a new determination in her eyes. "Implement Chaos Protocol." Jackson looked surprised. "Captain, that's untested in actual combat." "Now's the time to test it," Chen replied firmly. Jackson nodded and transmitted the orders across the human fleet. Captains received the unexpected command. Alliance of Worlds. The effect of Chen's order was immediate and dramatic. The human ships broke formation, each vessel suddenly executing seemingly random maneuvers. Some charged forward, others pulled back. Some cut power to weapons and diverted energy to engines, while others did the opposite. The Lumari observers watched in confusion. "What are they doing?" Sorel asked. "They're breaking formation, losing coordination." "No," Jackson replied with a tight smile. "They're being human." On the tactical display, the perfect Void Horde formation faltered for the first time. Their ships, programmed to counter logical attack patterns, struggled to adapt to the unpredictable human movements. "They're machines that think linearly," Chen explained to the bewildered Lumari. "Humans evolved to hunt creatures that ran in zigzags. Sometimes the optimal solution isn't the right one." The tide of battle began to shift. Human ships darted in and out of range, striking where least expected, retreating when the Void Horde adjusted. The mechanical precision of the enemy fleet became a weakness as they struggled to predict the seemingly random human attacks. But the Void Horde was learning. Within an hour, they began to adapt once more, developing new patterns to counter the human chaos. "They're adjusting again," Reyes warned. "Our advantage is slipping." Chen's face showed no concern. Instead, she smiled slightly. "Time for the real surprise." She turned to the communications officer. "Signal the boarding teams. Execute Operation Trojan." Across the rear of the human fleet, bay doors opened on specialized boarding vessels. The ID, small, heavily armored ships rocketed toward the Void Horde, weaving through the battle with incredible speed. The Void Horde, focused on calculating weapon trajectories and fleet movements, failed to register the tiny craft as significant threats. This was their critical mistake. "What are those?" asked Sorel, pointing to the small ships on the display. "Those," said Jackson with pride, "are our Marines, the best fighters humanity has ever produced." The boarding craft slammed into the hulls of the largest void vessels. Cutting tools and explosives created entry points. From each craft emerged squads of armored human soldiers, carrying weapons and determination into the heart of the enemy. "You're sending your people inside the enemy ships?" gasped a Lumari observer. "That's suicide." "That's humanity," corrected Chen. On the main screen, helmet camera feeds from the boarding team showed the interior of the void vessels. The human soldiers moved through narrow corridors, facing mechanical defenders and strange biological components that seemed to be part of the ships themselves. The Lumari watched in awe as the humans fought their way deeper into the Void Command ships. Where Lumari would have retreated, humans advanced. Where logic said to surrender, humans found another way. "Look at them," whispered Sorel. "They're not just strong, they're relentless." The battle outside continued, but now the Void ships fought with decreasing coordination as human teams reached their central control systems and planted explosive devices. The once perfect enemy formation began to fall apart. "It's working," announced Reyes excitedly. "The Void Horde is losing cohesion." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Full attack. Hit them while they're confused." The human fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. The Void Horde, with their central command structure compromised by the boarding teams, could no longer coordinate their defenses effectively. One by one, the massive Void ships began to explode or drift powerless. The smaller vessels, apparently dependent on directions from the larger ones, became erratic in their movements. Meanwhile, inside what appeared to be the Void Horde's flagship, Master Sergeant Elena Rodriguez led her squad through pulsing organic corridors. They had fought their way past dozens of drone defenders, losing 3 team members in the process. "Energy readings suggest the central node is just ahead," reported Corporal Williams, checking his scanner. Rodriguez nodded. "This is what we came for. Plant the charges and prepare to withdraw." As they rounded the final corner, they came face to face with something unexpected, a massive brain-like structure pulsing with bioluminescent energy. Tendrils extended from it throughout the ship. "Is that the thing controlling them?" whispered Private Jenkins. "Not just this ship," Williams said, staring at his scanner. "It's transmitting to the entire fleet. This is the central intelligence." Rodriguez didn't hesitate. "Set the charges, maximum yield." As her team placed explosive devices around the central node, Rodriguez opened a channel to the Dauntless. "Captain, we've found what appears to be the Void Horde's central intelligence. Charges set. Requesting immediate extraction." On the bridge of the Dauntless, Chen received the transmission with growing excitement. "All boarding teams, complete your missions and withdraw immediately. We have a primary target." As the human Marines fought their way back to their boarding craft, the charges they had planted throughout the Void fleet were set to detonate simultaneously. Rodriguez and her team were the last to reach their extraction vessel, barely clearing the flagship's hull before the explosions began. A chain reaction swept through the Void fleet. First, the flagship erupted in a spectacular explosion. Then, ship after ship lost power or self-destructed as their controlling intelligence was severed. The smaller craft, apparently drone vessels without independent thought, simply drifted aimlessly. After 6 hours of intense fighting, the remaining Void Horde ships suddenly turned and accelerated away from the battle, jumping to faster than light speed and disappearing into the void. "They're retreating," confirmed Jackson, his voice reflecting the disbelief of everyone on the bridge. A cheer erupted from the human crew. Chen allowed it for a moment before raising her hand for silence. "Damage. Report," she ordered. 12 ships lost, 27 damaged, replied Jackson soberly. Casualty numbers still coming in. The celebration faded as the cost of victory became clear. Chen turned to face the Lumari observers. "Your colony is safe," she said simply. "For now." Sorel stepped forward, her eyes filled with a new emotion. Respect. "How did you know the boarding strategy would work?" she asked. Chen looked back at the tactical display, where rescue ships were already moving to retrieve survivors. "We didn't," she admitted. "But humans have always understood something that machines never will. Sometimes you have to do the unexpected. The irrational, the seemingly impossible. That's how we survived on Earth. That's how we'll survive out here." The Lumari looked at the Deathworlders with new understanding. The very unpredictability they had feared was what had saved them all. 3 months passed. The Lumari capital world shone like a jewel beneath its twin suns. In the grand meeting hall of the High Council, representatives from all 27 worlds gathered for a historic occasion. The room was decorated with both Lumari and human symbols. Delicate crystal sculptures stood alongside sturdy earth plants. The two cultures, so different in form and philosophy, had begun to find common ground. Captain Chen entered the hall wearing her formal uniform. Though the fabric was freshly pressed, careful eyes could spot hastily repaired damage, a reminder of her close call during the final confrontation with the Void Horde flagship. Behind her walked her senior staff and the heroes of the boarding team, including Sergeant Rodriguez. The Lumari rose as the humans entered. No longer did they shrink back in fear at the sight of the Deathworlders. Now there was respect in their eyes, and something more: gratitude. Senior Counselor Tessa, who had once been the strongest voice against contacting Earth, stood at the center of the raised platform. Her silver robes were more elaborate than usual, marking the importance of the day. "Captain Chen," she said, her voice carrying through the quiet hall. "Please step forward." Chen approached the platform, her stride confident but not aggressive. She had learned to move carefully in the presence of the more delicate Lumari. "The remaining Void Horde forces have been driven from our Confederation," Tessa announced. "Thanks to the brave actions of the human fleet and the coordination of our combined forces." Chen nodded in acknowledgement. "The threat is contained but not eliminated," she replied. "The Void Horde will analyze their defeat and return stronger. Next time, you need to be ready." There was murmuring among the Lumari representatives. The idea of preparing for war was still foreign to many of them. Tessa raised her hand for silence. "We have taken your words to heart, Captain. Already, volunteers from our worlds have begun training with human instructors. We are learning difficult lessons. Necessary ones," Chen corrected gently. "Yes," Tessa agreed. "Necessary." She straightened her shoulders. "I have an announcement to make. The High Council has voted unanimously to request a permanent human presence in our sector. A defense pact, cultural exchange, and open borders for trade and migration." A ripple of surprise passed through the human delegation. Chen raised an eyebrow. "After centuries of quarantine, you're inviting the dangerous Deathworlders into your homes?" "We were wrong," said a familiar voice. Ambassador Sorel stepped forward to stand beside Tessa. "We feared your strength, your evolutionary adaptations, your capacity for violence. We didn't understand that the same forces that made you dangerous also instilled in you a profound drive to protect." Chen looked around the hall, seeing nods of agreement from the Lumari representatives. "That's a significant change of heart," she observed. "When faced with extinction," Sorel replied, "one's perspective tends to shift." Tessa presented Chen with a crystal tablet. On it was inscribed the proposed treaty between Earth and the Lumari Confederation, an alliance that would forever change the future of both civilizations. "Admiral Torres has reviewed the terms," Chen said, accepting the tablet. "Earth is prepared to sign." The signing ceremony was broadcast across both human and Lumari space. On 27 worlds and on distant Earth, billions watched as two species, once separated by fear, joined their futures together. The terms were simple but powerful. Humans would establish defense outposts throughout the Confederation, training Lumari forces and providing protection. In return, the Lumari would share their advanced medical and environmental technologies with Earth, technologies that could help heal the scars left by centuries of human warfare and industrial development. 1 week later, Chen stood on the observation deck of the Dauntless, watching as the first human colony ships entered Lumari space. They carried families and civilians who would establish permanent settlements in the Confederation. At the same time, Lumari scientists had begun arriving on Earth, bringing with them knowledge that promised to transform human society. Commander Jackson joined Chen at the viewport. "The first defense stations are already operational," he reported. "The Lumari learn quickly when they put their minds to it." Chen nodded. "They'll need to. The Void Horde will return and they won't be alone. There are many threats in this galaxy. At least they won't face them alone anymore," Jackson said. Chen smiled slightly. "Neither will we." Ambassador Sorrell entered the observation deck, moving with growing confidence among the humans. She had volunteered to be the Lumari liaison to the Earth Defense Force and had spent many hours learning human customs and military protocols. "Captain," she greeted Chen. "May I speak with you privately?" Chen nodded, and they moved to a quiet corner of the deck. Through the viewport, they could see the stars stretching out to infinity. "I still don't fully understand why you came," Sorrell confessed. "After how we treated your species, quarantining Earth, denying you your place in the galactic community." Chen looked out at the stars, thinking of humanity's long, violent history, how they fought and killed one another for millennia before finally finding unity. "We came because you were afraid," she said simply. "On Earth, for most of our history, fear was a constant companion. We know what it's like to feel helpless against forces beyond your control. No sentient being should have to face that alone." Surreal was silent for a moment. "The old council believed that your aggressive instincts made you too dangerous to join the wider community. They never considered that those same instincts could make you our greatest protectors." "Humans are complicated," Chen agreed. "We can be builders or destroyers. It's all in how we channel our nature." She turned to face Sorrell directly. "Your people evolved in peace and harmony. Mine evolved fighting for survival every day. Both paths created intelligent, sentient beings worthy of respect. But when danger comes, you need both kinds. Those who know how to heal and those who know how to fight." "Balance," Sorrell said thoughtfully. "Exactly." Chen gestured to the stars. "There's room out there for all of us, the peaceful and the warriors. And sometimes the warriors are the ones who ensure the peaceful can stay that way." In the months that followed, human ships traveled throughout the Lumari Confederation, establishing bases and training centers. Lumari volunteers, once afraid of violence in any form, learned the basics of defense and strategy. Meanwhile, human children on Earth began attending schools designed with Lumari principles, learning to value harmony alongside strength. The galaxy. Watched this unexpected alliance with interest and some concern. Other species who had also avoided contact with the dangerous humans began to reconsider their positions. The message spread across the stars. The Deathworlders of Earth were not to be feared, but perhaps to be. The Deathworlders of Earth were not to be feared, but perhaps to be welcomed. For when darkness threatened, there was no better ally than a species that had evolved to face death and emerge stronger. And on the edge of known space, other powers took note. The scattered remnants of the Void Horde processed the information and adjusted their plans. Various ambitious empires reconsidered their expansion strategies. For the first time in millennia, predatory civilizations paused before striking weaker neighbors. Because now they knew, harm one peaceful world, and you might find yourself facing the full might of humanity. The distress signal that had sparked fear had revealed a profound truth. Sometimes the most dangerous species in the galaxy are precisely the allies you need when facing extinction. Year after the battle, as Captain Chen prepared for a new assignment deeper in Lumari space, she received a visitor in her quarters aboard the Dauntless. It was an older Lumari, one she didn't recognize. "Captain Chen," the Lumari said, bowing slightly, "I am Elder Nira. I was among those who voted to quarantine Earth 8 centuries ago." Chen raised an eyebrow but gestured for the elder to sit. "That's a long time to carry a decision." "Indeed," Nira agreed, settling carefully onto a chair reinforced. "For the more substantial humans. I came to tell you something important. The original quarantine was not merely out of fear of your violence." "No?" Chen asked, intrigued. "We saw in your species something we recognized from our own ancient past. before we evolved beyond it. A fire, a drive to expand, to grow, to overcome obstacles at any cost. Nira's eyes, milky with age, seemed to look beyond Chen. We feared that fire would consume the galaxy if left unchecked. And now? Chen prompted. Now I understand what my ancestors knew, but I had forgotten, Nira said softly. Fire destroys, yes, but it also warms, protects, and creates. The same fire that burns can also forge. It all depends on how it's directed. Chen nodded. That's the choice humans make every day. I have lived long enough to witness my greatest mistake corrected, Nira said, rising to leave. The quarantine is officially lifted by unanimous vote. Earth is formally invited to join the Galactic Council as a founding member of the new alliance of worlds. After the elder left, Chen stood at her viewport for a long time, watching the stars. Humanity had emerged from isolation not through conquest, but through protection. Not by demanding their place in the galaxy, but by earning it in wine. The decades that followed, the Alliance of Worlds grew to include dozens of species, each contributing their unique strengths. The Lumari taught harmony and healing. Other races brought their knowledge of art, science, and philosophy. And humanity? Humanity brought its fire, carefully controlled, purposefully directed. They became the guardians, the protectors, the ones who stood between innocence and horror. They were still Deathworlders, still creatures shaped by a harsh world and a harsher history. But now, that strength served a greater purpose. When new threats emerged from the darkness between stars, it was human fleets that answered the call. When peaceful worlds trembled before cosmic horrors, it was human soldiers who stood in the breach, not because they were fearless, but because they had learned to master their fear. Not because they loved violence, but because they understood its necessity. As Captain Chen, now Admiral Chen, would often say to new cadets, "We are not warriors because we love war. We are warriors because we love peace enough to defend it." And the galaxy, once so afraid of the Deathworlders, learned to sleep soundly knowing that the most dangerous species in known space had dedicated their tremendous capacity for violence to a single purpose, ensuring that the flame of sentient life in all its beautiful diversity would never be extinguished. When the stars called for guardians, the children of Earth answered, and the universe was better for it.